Okay, looks like we just lost a connection, which I thought was bound to happen. But I am taking video with my better camera anyway. This is just off of my Android phone. So I will publish this. Hopefully George can publish it on agora.io, and but I will publish it on Talley TV. By the way, thanks so much for George Jomley putting this together, and Ethan Lee Vitta for being my man behind the scenes to make this happen. So where was I? I was talking about Free Grafton as part of that being my community that I'm trying to be the media in. So I moved here, don't know many people, and but so I feel it's very important for me to start building alliances, not only with Free Staters but with the community. So I start attending meetings. People have taken video before I ever got there, so that's not a new thing. But, I'm a new person on the scene. I go to the select boards meetings and I start taking video. But I make sure that I introduce myself, and that's another reason I like to handle Talley TV, because I try to make it as obvious as possible to government officials that I am going to be taking a lot of video. I'm going to be covering what they do, and their process is going to be much more transparent than it was. And now why do I think that's important? I think the camera is the activist's best friend. I think it makes situations much more polite, not just for the government official or the police officer, but also for yourself. I think it's very important that the peace, the freedom activist comes across as the good guy, because we are. And I'll get into a little bit later why the police may not be the good guy, like a lot of people assume. So in Free Grafton, I made sure that I introduced myself and let them know my background and what I'll be doing in their community, and why I made it my community also. And there's a lot of great reasons why Free Grafton is a good community. I encourage you to go to freegrafton.com to find out more. So, yeah, and I also encourage just be upfront about it. There's nothing to be shy about. You have a video camera. You're going to attract attention. Have business cards that you can hand people. Refer them back to your site. Because everybody that I take video of, oh, where can I see this video? And film large events. I just filmed a candidates night meeting, and I was moving around and being very obvious about what I was doing. I was the only person filming there, but I'd like to be a source of information for the community to be able to go to. Do I have a bias? Of course I have a bias. Everybody has a bias. My bias happens to be pro-freedom, as I would gather yours is also, other than those members of law enforcement who may be lurking here today. But mainstream media is biased. They're biased every time that they talk about taxation, and they don't refer to it as theft, or as when they discuss an election that they would consider legitimate, even though it's backed by violence. I mean, that's bias. My bias is towards a voluntary community. It's towards peace, and it's towards sticking up for people that I consider are the victims of a violent government. And I have examples of that I'd like to share. So when I first moved to Grafton, I was befriended by some of the local activists here. Some of the local activists who are very inside the system didn't befriend me, and that's okay. But one of the individuals who I learned about was a man named Robert Constantine, and you might know him as Weed Claus. And before I ever got here, he was kidnapped on his own property. He has 20 acres here in Free Grafton by members of the Canaan Police Department, which is the nearby town, which is odd. Free Grafton, I should say, unfree Grafton has one cop. He was also on the scene. But they took him, and they said that he was charged with manufacturing a controlled substance, which you may know as marijuana. And they accused him of growing this on his own property. Now, to get up to his property, you have to take it's a road, but it's privately maintained, so it could be considered a trail in many cases, during different parts of the year. So if anybody's leaving people alone, it's Bob. Well, there were several police cruisers up here, and they took him from his home, and so he faces trial. I believe it's April 11th. His jury selection is on March 29th. And so if you have to look at, as a member of the independent media, you have to look at the circumstances. Who was harmed, by the actions of that day when the police came on the property? Well, Bob hasn't harmed anybody. I've been in this area for a while. I've never heard of Bob harming people, but I have heard of plenty of people that Bob has helped. So I think one important role of somebody who's producing independent media, who's also an activist like myself, is to become an advocate for people, to be able to give a voice to people who need a voice. And Bob, by the way, is a great activist. He's been, I got to know him when I moved here, but just learning all the stuff he does. He and Rich Angel have jury outreach covered. Ironic, because like I said, Bob faces a jury on March 29th. He's been doing jury outreach much longer than he's been charged. It just so happens that he's going to be facing a jury during his trial. But so yeah, we've been working together, and I've been covering his story. Bob and other people in Free Grafton have been very kind as far as not minding being on video, and that's a big help to somebody who's also producing independent media. I spend most of my time behind the camera. That's the way I prefer it. Now, I want to talk a little bit about becoming the story, because as an activist, there are times where you are going to want to be in front of the camera. One of the projects that we did here in Free Grafton was the Peaceful Assembly Choir, and our friend Richard Onley, who once lived in the Keene area, I believe now he's in Oklahoma City. He writes songs, usually to the melodies of more popular, well-known songs. And I had a job that would be perfect for him. I asked him if he could put together some Christmas carols during winter, about marijuana and decriminalization, legalization. And it must have been maybe 24 hours, maybe 48 hours that he responded with what he calls the Weed Clause's Chronic Christmas Carols. And so we put together a choir, consisted of Evan, who was the democratically elected Emperor of Free Grafton, Rich Angel, who was recently elected as the Minister of Transportation, and before they left, Kat and Russell Canning, and myself. None of us other than Rich has any musical ability or even interest, but it was an important cause, so we all got together, and we sang these 5 songs at various places. We went to an open mic nights. We performed at the Peaceful Assembly Choir during Thanksgiving. We went to meet Miss Jason Osborne's place and performed there. And our final performance was at the Keene Police Department, at the place where they hired these men to come by and harass a peaceful person, Bob Constantine, and take him from his property. And so that was one instance where I essentially became the story with other Free Graftonites. You can't really avoid that, but it was a lot of fun, and so you do what you can. I mean, again, as long as you're upfront about your bias, which my biases are in favor of what I think are positive things: peace, justice, liberty. who can be against those, other than people who get paychecks from the government. Um, so we have been kind of ramping up publicity about Bob Constantine, but always the activist. Bob, put on my radar about this woman, Patricia Smith. Now, Patricia Smith has I think it's a much more compelling story than Bob Constantine. Not that Bob's isn't compelling, and not that he's not peaceful. He is. But this is the story of Patricia Smith, who is a nurse. She was found to grow marijuana in her own home, and through some secret room. And so Bob and I went to her trial. It was going to be educational for the both of us to see. It was a jury trial, so we wanted to see how that went down. But all right, I'll bring my camera. And so we sat through the entire thing. I was able to interview a tearful Patricia Smith before the trial, and she hired an expensive attorney who, he gave nullification arguments, but the jury still found her guilty. And Bob and Rich Angel did pass out FIJA literature, Fully Informed Jury Association literature. Didn't seem to make one bit of difference. Actually, this jury received jury information twice, which honestly leads me to believe that we can maybe do more work on jury outreach efforts. Same thing with Jim Johnson, who was just found guilty by a jury. They probably received the same literature. That's a project that Rich Angel and others are working on at nhjury.com. Is to kind of give it a more New Hampshire-centric approach to jury selection, because there is pending legislation right now in the New Hampshire State House about being able to inform jurors of their responsibilities and rights. So, yeah, the whole Patricia Smith case, they had cops take the stand, they swore in, and you had cops that admitted that they knocked on her door, put a foot in the door so that she couldn't close it. 2 men, 1 woman came into the house, searched it, said that we could smell marijuana in your house. Again, no record of Patricia Smith ever harming anybody. She helps people. She's a nurse. She was actually providing marijuana to her adult daughter, who has a bipolar condition. She was taking lithium, but was able to stop taking lithium after smoking marijuana. I believe Patricia said 2 or 3 times a week. That's remarkable. And but the state, the people in Concord, well, actually the people in Washington D.C. believe that they know what's better for Patricia Smith and her daughter. And so Patricia Smith was sentenced to 2 years in a cage. Judge Vaughn from the Grafton Superior Court, he told her during the sentencing that we're going to send a strong message that we don't tolerate the growing of marijuana here in the Upper Valley. Well, that doesn't bode well for Bob Constantine, does it? So we covered her story. It's not a happy ending like many interactions with the state, but we're going to stay on it. I bring this up because, again, I've been in Free Grafton for about a year. I'm relatively new to this community, and as an activist, I need allies. And I think one of the best ways that we can build alliances with the people in our community to advocate for them. Also, find out the needs in the community and advocate for them. I grew up in Central Florida, watching a lot of news. For some reason, I was very civically minded. I really loved government class and all these things, and I wanted to stay up on current events. Well, in watching the news, I saw your Action 3 News or things of that nature, where reporters would, find criminals, people who were doing wrong, and they would probably do a request to be interviewed by their channel, and when it was inevitably denied, they would just wait out and find where they were, and then ask them questions. Why not do that with other criminals? People like the detective who took money out of Patricia Smith's purse. He admitted this on the stand, that he took money out of her purse. He took money from envelopes marked heating, or Christmas, or anniversary, things like that. All these items that Patricia Smith needed to maintain her life, just like that, stolen. And on top of that, the federal government wants to take her home. So I don't know. If you just look at the facts, if you take away the badge, the shiny tin badge, or the uniform, and you have to ask yourself who are the criminals, I think the answer is pretty clear. And it doesn't matter about laws. We all know that laws can be immoral and they can be unjust. And as part of my role with the Civil Disobedience Fund, we support the good people who disobey bad laws. And I'm going to do that in my personal life. Again, Patricia Smith, Robert Constantine, neither of them were hurting anybody, so they don't deserve the treatment that they get. I think the more that we remind members of law enforcement that what they're doing is wrong and immoral, I think the better off that we'll be. I think that maybe they will think twice about their actions and perhaps nullify bad laws in their own life using the discretion that they have as law enforcement. Maybe they won't want to knock on peaceful people's doors if they're just smelling the scent of marijuana. However, it should be mentioned that they were there because of an anonymous informant, just like Bob Constantine had an anonymous informant. On the stand, the state will call them concerned citizens, and they don't have to reveal who these people are. It reminds me of the East German Stasi. Look that up on Wikipedia, but it's a network of citizen informants against one another. Rich Paul brings up a good point about these informants, which is you don't, if there's a crime being committed, then of course people will call the police. Like if it's a real crime, I mean, if it's a murder or a robbery or things like that, those things are obvious. But if there are things like drug use where there's no victim at all, well then the police rely on these unnamed informants. And another thing I should mention is none of this. I don't think any of this would happen if it wasn't for the federal government's involvement. The prosecutor, and at least the trial of Bob Constantine, is paid by, in large part, by a grant from the federal government for their actions. So, and also, there's this big question about the New Hampshire drug schedule. Where is it? Can't find it. There's a law that says the Commissioner of Health and Human Services in the state of New Hampshire has to provide a schedule every 2 years and update it if there's any medical use for any of these drugs. Never has. The state of New Hampshire, as far as we can tell, has never published a drug schedule, despite the law requiring it. What they'll say is, oh, well, look at the federal statute. Well, that's not what the legislators asked for. I'm sorry, it's not asked for, and the law says shall publish. Okay, the commissioner shall publish this schedule. So he never has. A couple of people have done freedom of information requests and said, okay, well, where's the schedule? Can you send that to us? And they haven't been able to. Now, this is a story I'd like to cover more, and I encourage anybody else who wants to follow this story, because you would have to go through the New Hampshire court system. But if you can't find a schedule, then why are all these people in jail for for not harming anybody. You know, if they're there for drug drug possession or manufacturing a controlled substance, well, why are they there? Wouldn't it be cool if I don't know, a judge ruled in favor and said, you're right, there is no New Hampshire controlled drug schedule. You have to release all these peaceful people. Speaking of that, one of the interviews that I was really fortunate and able to do, also thanks to the help of Bob Constantine, was a interview with the new Speaker of the House, Bill O'Brien. Now, the talking point for the recent Republican win, they won control of the State House, was, oh, there's all these fiscal issues. Okay, fiscal issues are going to be the biggest thing that we're going to talk about. It's the most important thing to the state. Fiscal issues, fiscal issues, fiscal issues. So I brought up the point. Well, I first brought up the point about, you know, all the peaceful people in their cages, and he said, well, yeah, we're gonna handle that. You know, I feel bad about it. They shouldn't be in jail, but we have to handle these fiscal issues first. I'm like, well, what about the cost savings of releasing all of these peaceful people from New Hampshire cages? And, you know, he did, unfortunately, he didn't answer my question, as politicians are prone to do. But these are the people that we should be advocating for. It's a shame. I mean, you know, live free or die. This is what New Hampshire makes you put on every license plate, on every vehicle. And, you know, I want to live free. I want to avoid the or die part, but New Hampshire is surrounded by states and Canada that has some form of decriminalization, Massachusetts, Maine, Vermont. For some reason, New Hampshire is the holdout in this area, and I think that we have a lot of room for advancement here. It's, you know, it's a shame. It's a shame that that so many peaceful people are in their cages, so many peaceful people continue to be harassed. It's great what they're doing in Free Keene as far as the Central Square. Now that the weather is getting better, they are publicly smoking cannabis, which is a big change from years ago, a few years ago, I don't know what, 3 years ago, when Andrew Carroll, you know, defiantly held marijuana in his hand and was arrested for that as a peaceful act of civil disobedience. You know, now there's a policy of not arresting people who are just for smoking pot, at least in Central Square, at least, you know, because there's strength in numbers, you know, in their activities. But I would advocate you know, just look in the newspaper every day, and you're going to find people who are being victimized by the state. There was in Keene, there was a school teacher who you know, seemed to be well liked and did a good job by his students, and you know, was arrested for growing plants. By the way, I don't necessarily want to be like known as a marijuana activist, but because of me moving to Free Graft and you know, me advocating and covering the story of Weed Clause, it's very sad that what they are doing to peaceful people. Meanwhile, I mean, the ultimate irony is that the state of New Hampshire cages peaceful people while they sell liquor. They have these huge stores, if you drive up and down the interstate in New Hampshire, state liquor stores, where they also sell you lottery tickets. All these things are so awful that the state feels that they have to get involved. They sell up to like $500 million worth of liquor every year. I don't know what your opinion is, but I think I've, you know, hung out with people that drink. I've hung out with people that smoke marijuana, and I know what my preference is, and it's not what the state sells. Not that should be illegal, but anyway, so about these state liquor stores, some activist friends decided that they were going to do a protest at these places, which are very visible from the interstate. Bob Constantine played a large role in that, and I'm like, well, and this is, by the way, that would be the birth of Talley TV. The first video that I did for it was at the state liquor store, where I interviewed all these great activists who, they're holding signs. They had literature that they were passing out to people. I was just so impressed with my Shire allies. So that was the first video, and it inspired me to do a lot more. Because, as an activist, I want to have a camera out, and if I have this footage, then I'm going to want to edit it and put it up. So, but I really enjoy it. I really enjoy talking to people. I really enjoy talking to articulate people, and there's a number of them here in the Shire. And it was a great experience. So, so one of the things that you can do in community is like a large part of what I wanted to talk about today. Every community has its own unique views, its unique needs, and this has helped me to really, learn these things about my community, figure out, what needs to be done to replace the things that the government, the services that people, they believe they require them, and I'll take their word for it because they're willing to use a coercive state to steal from people in order to make that happen. So what you want to do is figure out like where these needs are, and then how you can do them voluntarily. And like I think it'd be great one day to have like a call-in radio show where people can discuss these things, or even have a meetings every 2 weeks, maybe on the same night that they have the select board's meeting. So the town can do their coercive thing, and then we can do our peaceful thing, to address these problems. Now, it's not going to happen overnight. In Free Grafton specifically, I know I need more allies here. I have some great allies, but it was a big loss when Cad and Russell left. It was a big loss when Grafton Gulch was announced that it's not going to be public any longer. So these are setbacks that we're going to have to overcome. But and by the way, there's a Talley TV video episode that I did with Grafton Gulch when somebody called a state sanitarian stopped by and issued an order for them to stop serving. And it was also a great story to see the community rally around Grafton Gulch. But these things are going to keep popping up. I want to be able to attract attention to Free Grafton because I believe it is what the slogan is, the place to live free. I think I also want to attract attention to the good people who disobey bad laws through the Civil Disobedience Evolution Fund, where you can find more at cdevolution.org. And freegrafton.com is where you can find more about the community where I live. But yeah, so all these things take publicity. Isn't that the business that we're in? We're here to communicate our values and our ideas. And I believe that we should be advocating more for people we don't even know. It was sad and telling that there was nobody that showed up for the Patricia Smith trial. Just Bob, who previously had showed up twice to do jury nullification outreach, and then myself with a video camera. I filmed it, and it's probably one of my highest viewed videos is the state versus Patricia Smith. I encourage you to watch it. I don't see how anybody could watch that and think that what the government is doing is right. I had the opportunity to ask some questions to the detective who took the stand and admitted taking money from her purse. He didn't want to answer any of my questions, so we I ended up just walking with him while I was asking him questions to his silence until he walked behind a secure area, a secure door at the sheriff's department downstairs. But if that got him to think about his actions and to understand that things are different now because hopefully the Free State Project is being successful and filling communities all over the Shire with activists, people who are going to ask these tough questions of them anymore. They're not going to be able to get away with their crimes, and that's what we'll call it, because that's what it is. It's criminal activities, and as I mentioned before, just because these people have badges and some laws that say that they can do these criminal actions doesn't absolve them of any responsibility. So I know probably a lot of you agree with that, but maybe take that next step and start advocating for your neighbors. I think it's a good way, like I said, to build allies in the community. I want to do much more of this, not only just like reading the paper and seeing what's going on, but because I'm putting stories out there, people are coming to me and saying, "Hey, here's a story idea," or supporting my efforts in a lot of different ways, and which is great. I can't do this by myself. I mean, it's always better to work in groups, and I do have a lot of good allies here and all over the Shire, but of course we're looking for more, and that's why a lot of us that have moved here already keep encouraging more people to move here, because it's just going to get better and better. I'm not exactly sure of the numbers of people that moved to New Hampshire as part of the Free State Project. And to be honest with you, that's not my concern. My concern is the people who are going to be here and do stuff. And that's why there are some great places to move. Keene, Manchester, and Grafton are some notable areas. And in Grafton, I have allies all over the Upper Valley. So it's a little bit more spread out, but there are like-minded people that it's been great. And the tagline of Motorhome Diaries was "Searching for Freedom in America," and I hope that my search has led me to New Hampshire, has led me to Grafton. There's other places that you can call that you can call it free. My tagline for Talley TV is "Reporting from the Front Lines of Freedom," and I'm not saying that where I live is the front line. I'm saying that it's a front line, and it's what I'm covering. But make your own front line. Make it like I said, advocate for people in your community. Hold the government accountable. They're supposed to be accountable. I guess elected officials would like it to be so that they're just accountable during elections, but you have your bureaucracies, and you have, not to get too far off topic, but speaking of accountability, Barack Obama was recently asked by a reporter, a Mexican reporter, about these shipments of guns that were sent to Mexico from the government. It's supposed to be, I guess, some kind of sting operation, but maybe they just called it a sting operation once they were caught. So, there's this problem with, so I'm told, of U.S. guns going over to Mexico for, to inflame their drug wars over there. And I mean, quite literally, their drug wars. I mean, the illegal drug industry has been killing elected officials and things like that. And Barack Obama said, well, there's a lot of moving parts to government that I wasn't aware of this. So let's identify those moving parts that are doing immoral things to our peaceful friends and neighbors, and hold them accountable. Yeah, because I mean, if we don't get out there and tell the truth, then who is? So if you have a video camera, charge it up, start asking tough questions. I've said it many times in this talk today. Just advocate, advocate, advocate. One thing that I see is that we're quick to stand up for our freedom-loving allies, and that's great. That's one thing I want Free Grafton to be known for, is that we stick up for our own, and it's it's just like the idea of the porcupine. You know, you don't tread on us, or else you're going to get quill. Now, totally peaceful, not really interested in guns, more interested in cameras. So what I can do is I can illustrate, or you know, when you demonstrate your bad behavior and your criminal actions, not yours, but the state's, of course. And I think that'll have some pretty profound effects. You know, these in the year that I've been here, the judges around here, the cops around here, I want them to get to know me, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to be facing them at some point. You know, they're going to deem something that I do as illegal, despite me being peaceful. And you know, I also, there's a big opportunity, like I did with the Patricia Smith case, and like I'm going to do with the upcoming trial on for Bob Constantine, which is I believe April 11th, and that is courtroom drama. Now, I'm not making the drama. I'm just a guy that takes video, but there's tons of shows that focus on courtroom drama. Way back with Perry Mason, and now you have like Law and Order has, I believe, what is it, like 4 or 5 different shows for that. People love their courtroom drama. And I was just at the, like I mentioned, the trial of Jim Johnson, where he had some courtroom drama. He was I think the first jury trial for a Free Stater activist. And so I believe somebody else took the video for that. But I'm going to start doing that more. I'm going to start attending trials. And, oh, yeah. One video that I haven't released yet is Big Mike's trial, where he was accused of standing, or like disobeying a lawful order. It was at the National 420 event, where there were some people accused of standing in front of a cop car and things like that. And so we all put in our request pretty early to film. It wasn't, I mean, it was just a notice. Actually, I didn't have paperwork to fill a notice, so I even went through one of their forms and filled it out. And so they had a bunch of bailiffs that stood in front of our cameras, because the judge said, "Oh, I don't have time to read all these motions. We need to get the trial going right away." And so even though the Supreme Court of the state of New Hampshire has said, you know, you need to defer to openness in your courtroom, you still have judges that balk at that. And speaking of that, you still have cops that balk at the right to be recorded, as Biker Bill has found out in Weir, New Hampshire. He was recently arrested for felony wiretapping. I believe those are the same charges as Carla and Will Koster. So some places in New Hampshire, they haven't learned their lesson yet, and I think that would be a good opportunity for a bunch of videographers, including myself, to go there and keep pressing the point. Because if it comes to it, I will be arrested for taking video where they don't want me to take video. I think that's going to just make the point that they don't want to be transparent in their processes. And you know, when I moved here, I didn't move here to hide, so it'll be more and more interesting. So I'm coming to the end of my time. Check out Talley TV. I haven't been making videos recently. That's going to change. We're just getting over with winter, hopefully. But my MacBook Pro, the computer that I had since Motorhome Diaries,